Are these new discs from MVP going in the bag, or are they just all hype? Welcome back to another Eric Jenkins disc golf video, guys. Today, I've got in the Jeremy Tempo from MVP and the new Eagle McMahon range. I'm out here at Freeman Lake. We're gonna throw a few made up holes with both discs and kind of see how they fly for your average user. So I'm kind of a noodle arm-ish. I throw about maybe 300 feet. We're playing some made up holes today because we just got through having some major flooding in Kentucky. Every fairway at Freeman Lake is pretty much full of water at this point. It's really sad. So hole one of this like 2-disc ace race style challenge, I guess we'll call it. Really just throwing these to kind of see how they throw, how they feel in the hand. Super cold today. I'm wearing a hoodie. That ought to tell you how cold it is because I very rarely wear a hoodie. We're at my favorite warm-up hole. This is hole one's tee pad at Freeman Lake. And then this is the practice basket. So it's probably a 120-foot shot, something like that. I always throw a couple of shots here to warm up for my round. We get into some 200-foot shots maybe, but I'm really trying to keep this to that 180, 250 range because that's what I would use this tempo for, and it's definitely what I would use this range for. So let's give these a toss, see if we can't throw one in from about 110 feet. It's not very far. All right, that's actually not that bad. Kind of pushes. My wife is a huge fan of the tempo. I always throw like a Houdini, something like that for that shot. I used to really love throwing a zone, but for me, the tempo feels like it might be like a slower arm speed zone. Let's try out the range now. Should be able to throw this a little more straight at it. Oh yeah, not bad at all. That flew almost like a berg, a little flippier than a berg. So yeah, I agree with most of the reviews on that. Even at my slow arm speed, I can kind of throw it flat or a little nose up and it will push straight and then drop. That's the biggest thing that you want out of a disc like that is the drop at the end, which I naturally have that kind of shot. Check this video out. It's going to be pinned up top if you want to see how I throw that shot. It's kind of like the Ezra Robin spin style throw. So far, I think we should be able to tap both of these in for a 2. They should, well, the range is parked. The tempo maybe a little bit outside of a 2 range. All the holes that we're going to be playing today, pretty well going to be like an ace race style. So everything should be like a par 2. We're seeing how good these discs are approach discs and how easy they are to get to the basket from 150 250. 250 is kind of pushing it for a tempo or the range for a normal person. Eagle and them, yeah, they're throwing it probably 300, 400 feet, but they're not human, so we are. Hole 1, the range is in there for like a little tap in. The tempo, I think I'm gonna putt with the range. Let me know what I should have done. If I should have putted with the one that I threw. I think I'm gonna putt with the range. Closest thing I got to a wizard. Oh, okay. That's a little floatier. Tempo did good. Putting with the range, which I wouldn't do, but yeah, I don't know if that's a light one. No, it's 173, so it's about your average weight. On to hole number 2, kind of the stick here maybe. So now we're kind of in that 150, maybe somewhere around there, the 150 range. Let's try tempo first from standstill. I'm gonna throw it out a little wide on hyzer and let it kind of come back. Added this tree for a little bit of difficulty. We will make these holes kind of progressively harder. So par 2. That is not bad. Maybe we're farther than 150. I felt like I really pumped that. It looks 150, but it may be 180. Range, kind of same way. I'm gonna pull it a little, try to throw it a little higher and wider. There we go. So yeah, both of those probably within a putt. This is the first little bit of golf that I've got to play in a little while, really. Jess has been sick. She's had the flu. Then we had the crazy weather come through where it was, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet of rain, craziness. Then we got snow right before that. So welcome to Kentucky, where we can have tornadoes, rain, flooding, and 2 or 3 inches of snow in the same day. It's pretty insane. So I'm actually really excited just to get out and throw a little bit today, even if it's 28 degrees. I feel like we walked a little bit, so maybe a little farther than 150 feet. Let's try to lay this range in there. My putt, it really likes a wizard. It really likes the tack. I will say, so far, out of all the tests that we've done, which we've only thrown 2 holes, the range has been kind of staying a little closer to the basket. I think a lot of that has to do with my personal throwing style. I like to hyzer things, get them to slightly flip up, push forward, and then drop. And the tempo is more meant for somebody that likes to throw a little more flat, push forward, skip left. So tempo is going to be really good for like a low ceiling shot. The range is going to be better for kind of like a floaty, higher ceiling where you can let the disc be in the air and then drop. Whoa, that's stuck. So par 2 wise, we're par with the we're par with the range, and we're 1 over with the JK tempo. So for hole 3, I'm going to give myself kind of a low ceiling and see how well this range performs with a lower ceiling, because I feel like this is more for a wide open shot. I don't see this disc climbing very much. It kind of wants to go to the ground. The tempo, on the other hand, is kind of fast. Should be really good at this low ceiling shot, if I'm good at this low ceiling shot, that is. So hopefully no tree straight off the tee here. Gonna put a little touch of hyzer on this to try to get it to go straight. Probably 200-foot shot here. That's not bad. That's within putt range, but for this to be a par 2 hole, that may be a bogey. So the range, same way, probably gonna put a little more hyzer on it, see if I can't get a little flip up, a little more oomph, farther than I thought. There it is. Woo! All right. So maybe the tempo just needed a little more tempo. Threw the range just a slight bit harder and got it to flip up and kind of go straight. And it went dead straight. So maybe I lied about the range. It actually did great. The way that I threw it. So that's par for the range. The way that I threw it, I put a little hyzer on it and let it flip up. That is kind of my go-to shot. So the tempo is kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage. Still thought I would get a little more out of the tempo than I did. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a little more overstable than I'm giving it credit for fresh out of the box. I think once it beats in a little bit, it's gonna be a really good headwind thrower. Now we're getting into my personal putting skill, not so much the disc. This is probably a 30-foot putt, very tight and technical. Oh, so par 2 wise, the tempo is 2 over, but it doesn't really fit my personal throwing style. I will use it for certain shots. It's just the shots that we've been throwing so far haven't really lined up great for a tempo. I thought this one would, the low ceiling. This time it was just a little more overstable than I thought it would be. So now we're on to hole 4 of this 6-hole challenge. I don't know, it's probably right at 200, maybe 220. I'm gonna try the tempo first. I'm gonna go to the right and go in between these 2 trees and try to get a little left skip. Oh, missed my line, okay. That's gonna be a long putt. Let's try the range. Same line. I'm gonna see if I can hold the hyzer. There we go. I thought I would love the tempo, and I think I do for certain shots, but for that like 200, 220 effortless distance, I'm really liking the range. It's like a Berg, but throwable. The range kind of gets a little flip up, pushes, and then drops. Great disc. The thing is, both of these discs are performing pretty close to the way I expect they would. The tempo is just a hair more stable than I thought it would be. I'm not getting the flip up out of it, and some of that could be my fault. Not throwing hard enough, not throwing smooth enough. First round I've played in a few weeks, but the range, man, it's actually doing really good. We'll putt with the range first. They actually both went about the same distance. Tempo's just way over here. I kind of sawed the tempo off a little bit, so I think maybe if I could have hit my line perfect with the tempo, that it would have been maybe up in here. This is probably max distance for the range for me. So 200 feet, 250 at the most, about 20. Oh, it's just so floaty. So my wizard would have dropped. And range has a little bit of float to it before it drops. So that's a bogey for the range. It's 1 over now. The tempo is 2 over, possibly 3 over after this next putt. I gotta go get my range to putt with it. I'm putting with it because I wouldn't putt with. So tapping that in. I'm putting with the range because I wouldn't putt with a tempo. The only time I would putt with a tempo is if we had a crazy headwind, something like that. Putting with the range from the tempo. Par 2, I've got to make this putt. This is probably a 40 footer. Oh, I thought I gave it a good spin. That was really close. It's got a little bit of float. All right, second to last hole here, hole 5. The range is 1 over on the par 2 course. Tempo is 3 over for 4 holes. It's just leaking a little left. I think a lot of that is how stable this is, and I'm just not giving it the credit for it being so stable. I keep thinking it's gonna flip up, and it doesn't flip up at a slower speed. Faster arm speeds, yes, this is gonna flip from kind of hyzer to flat and then push and then dump. This is gonna be our first and kind of only forehand test. I'm not a forehand guy, but this is where I would throw a forehand if I had to. So kind of low and left and let it kind of fade to the right. Probably 150 feet here. That's about the extent of my forehand. I just missed my line there, and I actually didn't do bad. I got afraid of these trees. A hyzer forehand's really hard for me as well. I mean, that's not bad. Range actually flipped up a little bit. A lot of that is form issues. So I think my flex forehand shot that I like to throw, I think the tempo would be perfect for that because it's just understable enough that it'll kind of hold the anhyzer and flex out of it slower. Man, it's a sloppy mess. We'll try the range first. I'm gonna try to remember that this lifts a little. So either a little nose down or less spin. Or just learn nothing. That's what I'm learning. That's a bogey for the range. Tempo is just straight behind it. Probably 45 feet. That was about 30. So basically the same putt. Just a little more downhill. Yeah, that makes the tempo 4 over through 5. The last hole we're gonna do an all out par 3 and just see how far I can throw it with the tee pad. So far, thoughts on the tempo and the range. I've thrown my wife's prototype tempo, and the Jeremy one does seem to be a little more stable than like the proto runs. I think it was in some kind of 3-disc challenge whenever they first released them. So this does feel a little more stable than what she's been throwing. I do feel like that this would eventually beat into a very nice flippy zone like disc. So slower arm speeds, probably will have a lot of fun throwing this disc. Loving the range so far. Actually exceeding expectations. Not quite like a Berg where it just like falls out of the sky. Getting a little flip up and push. Things that I wouldn't expect out of it. Max distance with the range. Probably no distance. Skip. All right, it's pretty close to what I would expect out of a tempo. But now we have pretty much a real shot with the tempo. This is what I would use the tempo for. Kind of a spike hyzer that just holds and dumps straight down. So I'm gonna be trying to go through this V to the right. just like that. Ace. Oh, dude. That was so freaking close. Final throw of the 6-hole challenge. Playing this hole, it's an actual hole here at Freeman Lake. Be playing this as a par 3. Tempo looks parked. This is a tricky shot with the range. Gonna have to put it on a lot of hyzer. Try to hit this gap wide right. Come on. Oh, baby. That's 2 shots. Maybe I just need to throw it off the tee and then throw an upshot instead of setting up like the ace race like I did, because both discs actually performed the way they should for an upshot. You can't get closer to the basket than this. That is insane. Finishing out with a par for both on 17, OG 18 here at Freeman Lake. Flying Colors, if you guys haven't met those guys, great group of people. Flying Colors hooked me up with this sweet tie-dye towel when we went down there to do our practice round for the Tennessee women's event. Jess is gonna be playing in that. I'm gonna be caddying for her. So we're gonna be down there hanging out, having a good time, guys. It's at the Red Apple course. I'll put a link for it in the description. It's actually a very fun, tight wooded course. So that's 6 holes out here with the Tempo and the range. Both great discs. I think if I'm gonna bag one out of the 2, probably gonna be the range, just because it suits my style of throwing. Might work its way in my bag later and be that kind of like flippy, flip up zone. And I may feel a little different when the weather's better and I can get a good solid rip on this disc. Support your boy, man. Jeremy, if I did nothing else, I would get one of these to support Big Germ. He's one of my favorite players on tour and just an all-around good guy. They've had a little bit of struggles here lately on tour and just different things. If you guys are enjoying this kind of content, like a disc review, I have a review of the Climo discs, and that's gonna be on the screen right now. Have a great day. Stay in the fairway, guys. If you want to pick them up, you can actually get them at Disc and Dat. So all their information and my discount code will be in the description below.